What a frustrating afternoon. Honestly, a really baffling game of football, because for half an hour, I thought Chelsea looked great. I was really, really impressed with how we took that game to Liverpool at Anfield. I don't even think half our players looked intimidated. Like, we looked brave. We looked comfortable on the ball. We were getting the ball in an area of the pitch where we were able to control it and actually cause a bit of an issue for Liverpool. We made it so that Liverpool were barely getting out of their own half at times. Players that are very important for Liverpool were kept quiet. Their numbers were extremely low for Liverpool. I think actually for the whole game, it's the fewest amounts of shots they've had at Anfield since 21. Chelsea were very promising. We made a very promising start, and I have to say, well done. Fair play, because I said if we went to Anfield and we sat back and we felt like we weren't really in that game, I'd have been really disappointed, because I think we should have tested ourselves to see what we were about. And I think for half an hour, the way we pressed as high up as we did and the way we won the ball back, and then if Liverpool went over the top of our press, which they did occasionally, we won the battles and we looked pretty comfortable. But about half an hour in, a little bit of inexperience, immaturity crept in, didn't it, with Levi Colwell. He committed one foul that you think, oh, you've got away with that one there. That could be a penalty, because he definitely didn't win any of the ball when he put his hands on Salah. And then literally a minute later, he was committing another foul. He didn't really learn from his previous mistake that he got away with. And ultimately, it meant that Salah was able to score another goal against Chelsea. And he just continues to haunt us, as he always will, even if he is having a quieter game. Because I think we actually did a pretty okay job of keeping him quiet today. I'm not sure whether Salah's 100% fit or he's fully sharp right now, because I think we all know we've seen Salah look better than what he's currently playing at. But he managed to score. And that's what good teams do. They win games when they're not great. And I think actually Liverpool probably had a case of that today. That's the fewest amounts of shots they've had at Anfield since 21. And I genuinely think they didn't look great. And that's what makes it so frustrating, because it really wasn't that long ago that we were being labelled bottle jobs at Wembley after playing Liverpool. And we were losing 4-1 and completely played off the park. And we've gone there today, and for half an hour, we looked really good. And then after that, I think there was a bit of, the game got a little bit erratic. And I think we were lucky probably to get to half-time with that penalty incident that didn't quite happen against Curtis Jones from that reckless sort of challenge from Sanchez. We were probably lucky to get in at 1-0. And I think second half, we did well to score that goal. I actually thought Caicedo and Lavia were brilliant. And we were in the game. And then you could see Maresca was looking to make substitutions that were obviously probably pre-arranged before the game because of the return of Reece James and Lavia. And I think Maresca kind of forced his hand with those subs. He was going to have to make those substitutions. I'm not sure about the Tosin one, but I do think the Vega and Enzo Fernandez substitutions were always going to happen, because that was the risk you kind of took. And it was so good to see Lavia and Reece playing, and Lavia looked absolutely fantastic. I think as did Caicedo at times. I think they looked very, very good and looked like that should be the future of our midfield together, because they were running the game for a while. And I was really impressed with that. But I felt like those substitutions almost looked like they were going to happen too early. But I'm sure that's come from the medical team in terms of managing those players that are returning from injury. But before those subs could even get on the pitch after we'd gone at 1-1, we conceded. From a real bit of quality from Curtis Jones, I have to say. I think that off-the-ball movement today from him was fantastic and was a real issue for Chelsea. He went completely undetected in that midfield. No one picked him up. And they managed to score off of that, where I think Sanchez probably could have done better. And then it was 2-1. And then I feel like we never really got ourselves back into a position where we looked like we were a real threat. We obviously saw Sancho come off at half-time as well, who, look, I mean, he didn't have the best game that he's had in a Chelsea shirt. I think that's obvious, but I don't think many players did today. And I think we need to be careful how quickly people are getting on his back, because I don't actually think that performance, in comparison to the rest of the team, was that bad. I think he should have had a penalty. I think he did really well when it came to challenging Trent. I think Trent had a very good game defensively and was happy to defend, but the way Sancho played also meant that Trent couldn't just bomb forward in the way that we know that he does. And I think we have to commend Sancho there, but ultimately, when Neto came on, I don't think we saw a huge improvement. It really wasn't a great performance. At times, there was a couple of moments where I think he did well, but other than that, I don't think the difference was that drastic. And I actually felt it was a bit harsh on Mudryk not to be in the team as well today, because I think that's a player that actually might have had an effect on that game. But look, it was a really frustrating, weird afternoon. And the fact that we're moaning that we didn't get more from that game when, like I said, a year ago, less than a year ago, we were being called bottle jobs, I think it shows that we've actually progressed, and I think we have moved forwards. But at the same time, there were issues there today that are just so frustrating. And the fact that the attack was poor, and Cole Palmer, our star player, really couldn't get in the game and missed a good chance, didn't he, that you'd normally back him to take. I just think it was really frustrating. I don't think that the way we set up was a real issue. I think if you look at it, though, with Maresca, maybe playing two players that have to come off after about 50 minutes wasn't the best idea, because it almost forces your hands into two pretty negative substitutions, with Enzo Fernandez coming on, who's never going to affect a game in the way that Lavia does positively. And I think with Vega as well, it's another one where I don't know how much he's going to affect the game positively. Even though I think he had a good game, it's probably not the substitution you need to be making at the 50th minute when you're 1-0 or 2-1 chasing a game. They felt like they were substitutions that you'd make if you were winning the game 2-1 to try and make sure you could see it out. And I felt like that was baffling a little bit to me. And I also felt like Sancho coming off at half-time, I don't know whether that was needed. I don't think he was... Look, I know his stats don't look great, but he should have had a penalty. And I think he was making things happen on that left-hand side. It was just a little bit slow. I think some words of encouragement and sort of asking him to do a little bit more might have been better than dragging him at half-time and potentially killing his confidence, because I don't think it was a situation where he had to be dragged at half-time. But I like that Maresca went for it, and I like that he didn't sit back, and I felt like he was brave, and he was brave that he played those players that returned from injury, but ultimately it's sort of led to nothing, and it's a really frustrating afternoon of football. But I have to say, fair play, because we're not in the same position that we were against Liverpool a few months ago, and I genuinely think that we've probably closed that gap. I feel like a couple of players didn't perform to the level that we know they could today. I felt like defensively, it was a little bit nervous. It was a little bit erratic at times. And I feel like ultimately there were some mistakes, I think, individually in terms of performance. And I genuinely think Maresca got a couple of things wrong today. But then I also have to commend him for getting some stuff right, and I have to commend players for performing. I have to commend Jackson because he scored again. People questioned this guy and said he won't score goals. Today, he gave us a chance. I have to commend Lavia. I have to commend Casado, because there are positives to take out of that game. But losing 2-1 and seeing the table and being 6th and looking at it in isolation probably wasn't good enough today. And then when you look at things from a bit further back and you look at how it's all gone with the board and how much money's been spent, it's frustrating to see that we've spent that much money, and I think we could be in a better position than what we are, because I look at that Liverpool side and I didn't think they were great today. I thought they were okay, and I feel like the gap really isn't that big between us. And I think with a couple of additions, this Chelsea side could have easily won that game of football today. I felt like there were some quality issues, and I do think there were some issues in terms of going forward, in terms of the substitutions we were able to bring on. I'm not sure they did enough, and they've cost a lot of money. And that's where you have to question the recruitment if you're looking at a slightly bigger picture. But in isolation, there were moments in that game that I want to take as a positive, and there were moments in that game that we have to learn from. And I think actually it's a little bit of a reality check, because I don't think a top 4 challenge is going to be as easy as some people were suggesting it might. Don't get me wrong, going to Anfield is incredibly difficult, but it feels weird not getting a draw, actually. But yeah, look, it's 2 visits. Our last 2 visits to Anfield haven't been very good, but a 4-1 to a 2-1 that was a much closer game, it's a little bit easier to stomach, isn't it? Even though losing to Liverpool is never that nice. However, I will say that I feel like gone are the days of that Liverpool-Chelsea rivalry that used to be one of the best matches in the Premier League and Champions League and European competitions and League Cup competitions and FA Cup competitions. A fantastic fixture of years gone by that I think might have had the sting taken out of it a little bit, as we saw today. It was a bit more of a chess match and a game that probably shows what modern football might be about, rather than a game that reminds us of the good old days that I don't think we're going to see much of anymore. And it kind of makes me think how much I miss the football that used to exist, and games were exciting and teams were a little bit more positive in the way that they played, and it wasn't just about holding onto the ball for some pointless possession at times. So, yeah, look, let me know your thoughts. Obviously, a really frustrating afternoon, and I can't be that happy about it, but I will try to find the positives. And I think it was a tough test, one that we've ultimately failed, but one we can build on. I think what I want to see now is we've lost. How do we rebound from this? How do we move forwards? Because last year, that was something we really struggled with. You know, we've got a really tough run coming up for the next 3 games. We've got European game on Thursday to give some players minutes and sort of get some confidence back into the team, hopefully. I think positions in the team could be up for grabs off the back of today. So let's see what happens. Gutted, obviously, I really am. But at the same time, I'm hopeful because I saw that I think we have taken steps forward under Maresca from Pochettino last season. It's just sometimes it's hard to find those positives when you don't win away at Anfield against Liverpool. Yeah, look, like the video if you haven't already. We're trying to hit 25 likes on this one, 30 likes. That's always what we try and aim for. Subscribe if you're new, because we're trying to get to 3,000 subs before Christmas. And I will catch you during the week on lives, and I'll probably have a few videos up before we play Panathinaikos in the Conference League. I'll see you in a bit.